Hello, I'm Alyson Le Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Le Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. US President Joe Biden introduces Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as Putin at a NATO event, as calls within the Democrats from him to quit the presidential race. Now, Beijing asks Washington to put an end to its bullying after Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the US and allies were working to counter problems posed by China. Israeli forces retreat from some Gaza City districts after a week of fierce military offensives, leaving dozens dead bodies and wrecked homes in Palestinian enclave's biggest urban area. Now, Nigerian authorities impose curfew in the capital of Niamey after several inmates, including Islamic militants, escaped a high-security prison. And Saudi Arabia will host the inaugural eSports Olympics in 2025, with the International Olympic Committee and the Kingdom's National Olympic Committee signing a 12-year partnership. Hello and welcome. Let's begin with the latest from Kenya. President William Ruto is in firefighting mode. Day after day, he is making more and more concessions to quell the growing anger against him in the wake of the massive anti-tax hike protests in the country. In the latest, the president has sacked almost his entire cabinet after listening to the protesters' demands. Just the foreign minister and the prime cabinet secretary has been barred from removal. Now, even the attorney general has been dismissed.
I have today, in line with the powers given to me by Article 1521 and 1525B of the Constitution and Sections 12 of the Office of the Attorney General's Act, decided to dismiss with immediate effect all the cabinet secretaries and attorney general of the Republic of Kenya, of the Cabinet of Kenya, except the prime cabinet secretary and cabinet secretary for cabinet secretary for foreign affairs and diaspora affairs. And of course, the office of the deputy president is not affected in any way.
On Thursday, Ruto announced the dismissal, which he says is to form a fresh, broad-based government. He says the decision comes after reflection and listening keenly to the people of Kenya.
Recent events that necessitated the withdrawal of the finance bill, which will require a review and reorganization of our budget and fiscal management, have brought us to an inflection point.
This is the latest move by William Ruto to diffuse tensions in the country. Nationwide protests erupted in Kenya last month after Ruto's government proposed several new tax hikes under the Finance Bill 2024. Through the tax raises, the government sought to raise revenue and to replenish state coffers. However, massive public outcry forced Ruto to roll back the bill. Now, though the protests have largely subsided, they have turned into a broader campaign against Ruto and his government. Calls have grown for Ruto to resign, and the president has since then tried to calm the angry Kenyans. He has had one-on-one conversations with the protesters. He has apologized for the police crackdown on the demonstrations. As per the rights groups, at least 39 people have died in the nationwide youth-led protests. Just days ago, Ruto signed a law that allows reconstitution of Kenya's electoral body. He has also announced a 6-day national dialogue forum beginning on the 15th of July to discuss issues pressing Kenyans. However, young Kenyans have rejected Ruto's plan. They insisted him to disband the cabinet and take action against corrupt officials. The protesters have accused the cabinet of incompetence, arrogance, and displays of opulence, while ordinary Kenyans battle a cost of living crisis. While Ruto has given in to this demand and dismissed the cabinet, many protesters are still not appeased. They warn of fresh protests as they express frustration with Ruto's failure to deliver on his 2022 election promise to create jobs and to boost their fortunes. Ruto has also not conveyed when the new government will be announced. Until then, he has assured that government operations would continue uninterrupted under the supervision of senior civil servants. However, analysts have warned of further risks if the new ministers are not named soon. Amid piling challenges and demands, Ruto is caught in a catch-22 situation. On one side, he is trying to soothe the protesters. On the other, he is trying to please lenders to cut deficits. Last week, Ruto announced sharp cuts to government spending, but credit rating agency Moody's has further downgraded Kenya's debt rating to junk territory. Ruto faces his toughest challenge in his nearly 2-year presidency. Such an abrupt dissolution of cabinet is very rare in Kenya. Ruto now has key tasks ahead of him. Will the president be successful in gaining public trust while fixing the national woes? And on to our next story now. On the 15th of July, Rwandans will head to the polls, and all eyes are on President Paul Kagame as he seeks to extend his rule. With overwhelming support and virtually no opposition, Kagame's victory seems inevitable. And with this term's win, he would extend his presidency into a third decade. Now, Kagame's journey began in 1994 when he led the Rwandan Patriotic Front to victory. That time, he garnered appreciation for ending a devastating genocide that claimed over 800,000 lives. Then, rising from vice president and defense minister to being elected as the president in 2000, Kagame has consistently secured re-elections with over 90% of the vote in 2003, 2010, and 2017. In all of his years of power, Kagame is known to have stabilized and transformed the country. Access to electricity to households has widened, corruption has gone down, and Rwanda has become a vibrant hub for sports, culture, and conferences. Its remarkable transformation even gained the East African nation the nickname of Singapore of Africa. While some view Kagame as a visionary leader, others perceive him as an oppressive despot. And his re-election may also draw continued global scrutiny. Now, because time and again, the West has accused Kagame government of suppressing the media, carrying out political assassinations, and even supporting rebel groups in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. But despite criticism of his rule, Kagame's supporters insist he is the best person to rule the East African country. And just like in 2017, this year Kagame will again face Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party of Rwanda and independent candidate Philippe Mpamana. Now, while Kagame was met by crowds of admiring supporters at campaign rallies, his challengers have struggled to pull crowds to their events. Observers say that just like 2017, when Kagame took nearly 99% of the votes, a similar result is expected this year too. Now, this year's election marks the historic moment when the first generation born during Kagame's presidency will exercise their right to vote. The Electoral Commission has registered 9.5 million eligible voters, with approximately 2 million being first-time voters. Observers and allies of Rwanda, recognizing its growing regional significance, eagerly await Paul Kagame's potential geopolitical moves in the event of his victory. Shifting focus to Burkina Faso in West Africa. The country's military leader, Ibrahim Traoré, has leveled strong accusations against France. He has accused the former colonial power of destabilizing his country. Traoré says France is destabilizing Burkina Faso with support from West African nations Benin and Ivory Coast. He also claimed to have evidence for the same. Traoré said that France has set up 2 secret military bases in Benin that are directed against Burkina Faso. He claimed that these bases are a center of operations for the terrorists who regularly strike Burkina Faso. He said he has audio recordings of French agents in Benin who play at the terrorist centers of operations. Traoré has lashed out at the Ivory Coast for still being an ally of Paris. He claimed that the country was hosting a center of operations to destabilize Burkina Faso. Now, French military has reacted by denying the accusations. The military refused the existence of military bases in Benin. It said that France has 5 bases in Africa: Chad, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Gabon, and Djibouti. But the French military added that occasionally temporary and short-term operational training detachments are deployed in Benin at its request. Now, such accusations were also made earlier this year by Burkina Faso's neighbor, Niger. West African states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are transitioning to military coups, have turned away from the traditional Western allies, and the junta-led states have broken military and bilateral agreements with France and have accused it of failing counter-terrorism operations in the region, while also destabilizing the countries. Last week, the 3 nations formed their own alliance and ruled out their return to the West African bloc ECOWAS. Meanwhile, the military-ruled nations have built closer ties with Russia, which has tapped the opportunity to expand its footprint in the region. Russia is signing cooperation deals with these countries across sectors, while also training the armies to fight against terrorism. With growing anti-West sentiment, more players are making inroads to the region, which in turn is becoming a new hotspot of geopolitical rivalry. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid reports of coups and crises that dominate the headlines from the continent, we get you positive stories that often get overlooked. Our story today is from Algeria, where 2 women are spearheading the shift towards eco-friendly farming. Born in an urban background, they abandoned their city lives and now work on a small patch of land miles away from home to grow fresh food in an environment-friendly way. Our next report tells you more about these inspiring agents of change.
Climate change today is a reality for the world to see. Weather extremes are causing loss of life and destruction in countries across the world. To deal with the crisis, some are driving a shift towards sustainability and better alternatives that can help mitigate the impact. Small steps in various sectors like industry, energy, finance and fashion could yield bigger results for the future. Agriculture is also witnessing a transformation with organic or eco-farming. It's too soon to call it a revolution, but even the smallest of steps can help the planet. The chemical-free farming method is currently used on just 2% of the world's agricultural land. Africa so far has the smallest distribution. In Algeria, 2 women are leading the charge. 28-year-old Amira Messous and 29-year-old Ibtissem Mahtout. They are pioneers for eco-farming in Algeria's male-dominated agriculture industry. The plant ecology and biodiversity graduates left the capital Algiers to work on a small patch of land miles away. They now run one of the country's rare ecological plots of land in the small town of Douaouda.
It was the first time we touched the earth because we come from an urban background. So we weren't too familiar with the earthy rural side of things. For a year, we really had a blast doing this.
They launched their project with just around $445. They learned to plant, to sow and to work the soil. And now, without the use of pesticides, they grow fruits like tomatoes and strawberries and vegetables like beetroot on their 1,300 square meter farm. They aim to produce the food in harmony with the broader ecosystem.
We started with around 400 euros just to buy our basic tools. We got a bit of help from producer who paid a bit of the labor at the beginning. What I really wanted to say is that even from nothing you can start a project that's close to your heart and that you're passionate about.
Starting something new was not the only challenge these young women faced. They also had to defy gender norms. They had to integrate into a sector which is overwhelmingly dominated by males.
4 years ago, it wasn't very common, especially women in agriculture. Above all, we weren't really a part of this milieu. The fact that we had to integrate was a bit scary.
As per Algerian media, just around 4% of registered agriculture workers in their province are women, but not everyone has been frowning upon them. Some male farmers have appreciated their work. They are happy to see educated women working in the sector. Today, the young women have employed themselves one male worker. They also employ up to 8 part-time workers at harvest time. The pair has also learnt marketing techniques to sell their produce. When not in the fields, the 2 women make full use of social media to advertise their baskets of seasonal fruits and vegetables. Not just this, they also market their produce in a large farm in the capital where every week clients come and pick up their healthy and fresh orders. Each week, the duo sells between 10 and 30 baskets of seasonal fruit and vegetables.
I came from Bab Azwar to encourage the girls' initiative. I came here the first time and fell in love with the place. Every now and then you want to eat something healthy. And what's more, when I found out about the sales for subscribers, I found these girls very nice and I wanted to encourage them.
Despite coming from an urban background, the 2 women now see working at a farm as the best job in the world. From morning until night, they spend their time on fields, which they say gives them immense joy. While many nations in Africa are struggling to adopt organic farming owing to lack of resources and awareness, it's people like Amira and Ibtissem who could drive a change. Combining education with passion, they can make eco-farming a success story in Africa.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time on Monday. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend and goodbye.